Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. Hearthstone Rise of Shadows cards have all been revealed and it's theory crafting time. In this video I'm going to be working on the Priest class. So I'll take a look at the Priest cards, some of the main neutral cards that Priest is going to benefit from, and I have 4 theory crafted decks for you, showcasing what avenues Priest might take in the new expansion and in the new metagame. Starting with the Priest cards, the Priest set isn't necessarily bad. There's support for Silence Priest, there's support for Deathrattles, there's some support for Resurrection, and then there are some miscellaneous cards with Madame Lazul and Lazul's Scheme Forbidden Word, so an interesting set of cards. Unsleeping Soul first, that's 4 mana silence a friendly minion then summon a copy of it. That's a very strong spell for Silence Priest. Then Convincing Infiltrator, 5 mana 2/6 taunt, Deathrattle, destroy a random enemy minion. So pretty powerful taunt minion, especially if there are big minions on the opposing side. Of course not that great against token boards. Although still that 6 health for 5 mana isn't terrible even against tokens. 2 attack should be able to deal with them fairly adequately. Then Henchclan Shadequill, 4 mana 4/7, that's a huge body. Deathrattle, restore 5 health to the enemy hero. So this can be silenced, or then it just keeps trading, helps you in the mid game. Or maybe you turn that health gain into damage with Orkanai. That's also one possible avenue to use this card. Very strong looking card. And then these resurrect cards are pretty insane. Katrina Muerte, 8 mana 6/8, at the end of your turn summon a friendly minion that died this game. I have reviewed these resurrect cards already in my previous videos, and this Katrina and Mass Resurrection summon 3 friendly minions that died this game, 9 mana, so they're pretty costly, which means that you can't very easily use them to do what Priest has lately been doing with Clone Priest, so just Velens and Maligis and pew pew pew. These are more of wall Priest style resurrect cards, combo Priest style resurrect cards, just resurrecting big stuff and seeing if it sticks, but overall powerful cards. Shadowy Figure, a 2 mana 2/2 battlecry, transform into a 2/2 copy of a friendly Deathrattle minion. So some really interesting Deathrattle support, because for mere 2 mana you can make a 2/2 Cairn or a 2/2 Mechanical Whelp or a 2/2 Convincing Infiltrator. Just a very flexible card for Deathrattle decks. Priest is also getting a pretty good Lackey generator in Evil Conscriptor, 2 mana 2/2, Deathrattle, add a Lackey to your hand. So the body is a bit of a throwaway, but it can usually trade one-on-one. Then the Lackey is just pure value. Madame Lazul, battlecry, discover a copy of a card in your opponent's hand, very powerful legendary minion. Getting resources from your opponent and information about their hand. Lazul's Scheme, reduce the attack of an enemy minion by 1 until your next turn. Cabal Shadow Priest, Shadow Man is able to steal anything with Lazul's Scheme if it's in your hand long enough. That's pretty scary stuff too. And then Forbidden Word, spend all your mana, destroy a minion with that much attack or less. So it's not quite as cheap as Shadow Word Death, but it's flexible. So we'll see how it turns out. Overall, a pretty nice set of cards, but Priest is losing everything, so can this set of cards really bring Priest back from the grave? I'm not sure. It still looks like a difficult task. But they are getting some help from the neutrals. Here are some of the main neutrals Priest could be interested in. I mean, the Silence Priest team is just getting a lot of support with Dalaran Librarian, 2 mana 2/3, battlecry, silence adjacent minions, Arcane Watcher, 3 mana 5/6. Can't attack unless you have spell damage, or unless you silence it, of course. Faceless Rager, 3 mana 5, when the battlecry, copy of friendly minions' health. So if you have some high health minions, then this can be really cheap and really big minion. Safeguard, interesting for Deathrattle, 6 mana 4/5 taunt, Deathrattle summon a 0/5 vault safe with taunt. Just a lot of taunt power on the board. And if there's some way to build a control priest, it might be too difficult. I'm not sure if it's really possible, because without Psychic Scream, without Spirit Lash, priest a little bit struggles with that removal. But if there was a way to build a control deck, well, Archivist Elysiana would of course go to almost any control deck. 8 mana 7/7, battlecry, discover 5 cards, replace your deck with 2 copies of each, so that's the tool to go to Fatigue with. But what kind of decks can we build with these cards? Let's go take a look. I have built 4 Priest decks, and at least one of them is probably going to be okay. And that one is this archetype, Silence Priest. Silence Priest is getting so much support. Dalaran Librarian, Arcane Watcher, Faceless Rager, Unsleeping Soul, Henge Clan Shadequill. That's just a lot of support for this archetype. So I built this version to be pretty tempo oriented, trying to get on the board very quickly. Ancient Watcher into Arcane Watcher into Dalaran Librarian, something like that for example. Being able to draw a bunch of cards with some Pyromancer combos. There's Pyromancer, Cleric, there's Circle, Powered Shields and stuff, and it has the actual combo Divine Spirit Inner Fire. So hit face a few times, then Divine Spirit Inner Fire something to finish the job. Not doing really Divine Spirit Inner Fire from 30, but rather punching the opponent in the face a couple of times, and then you can do like Divine Spirit Inner Fire to deal like 12 or something, just to finish it off. I'm not quite sure how this archetype is exactly going to turn out yet. I've also seen some people put Lasso Scheme and Shadow Madness into this, play it a little bit slower style. I was really torn between including Injured Blade Master or trying with the Faceless Rager, because Injured Blade Master is traditionally a very strong card in this archetype with the Circle of Healing and things. So there is no doubt going to be some fine-tuning needed in order to get this archetype to be good. But it is getting a lot of support, it has a lot of overstated minions, it has access to multiple silence effects right now. So this is definitely something to watch out for. It just comes on the board very quickly and starts punching you in the face with big minions. And before you know it, one of them gets buffed a little bit and punches you in the face some more. Another type of priest that's getting support in the new expansion is Resurrect Priest. There's Katrina Muerte, there's Mass Resurrection. Because Resurrect Priest cannot really get that Velen thing going, that seems very difficult at the very least, then that probably means that it would have to be a type of combo priest, or priest style. This deck has the Divine Spirit Inner Fire combo, there's one copy of Lasso Scheme, one copy of Shadow Madness, so I have that option to steal something also and hit that into the opponent's face. And this is trying to get big minions here. Moshog, Stegotron, Witchwood Grizzly. One of the big questions is how do you survive to actually get to play all these big minions and then start resurrecting them. And I have a couple of smaller minions here. There's Archmage Vargot, and Archmage Vargot can double up your Holy Nova, so that makes Vargot a little bit more interesting. And it has a pretty good stat line, a lot of health, so it has to be dealt with. That can buy you some time. There's also Henge Clan Shadequill, even though that heal effect on the Deathrattle could seem to be counterproductive, but this deck is probably able to finish off the opponent from around 30 anyway when it works. So it's not that scary to heal your opponent a little bit. Just having a minion that you can use to trade and try to maintain some level of board control in the early game is good. I have also chosen to include Cloning Gallery, because then you can get some bodies that you might be able to resurrect later. And also when you have stuff like Convincing Infiltrators in the deck, and if you Cloning Gallery some of those on the board, then even though the opponent can deal with the one once, then some of their minions will also die. Not quite as scary looking as it used to be, just losing that Shadow Visions is a huge loss, but something like this, Priestess could try with something like this at least. Then with the new Deathrattle support, I kind of would like to see some kind of Deathrattle Priests, and this is what I've been working on, because there's still Deadringer. And Deadringer draws you another Deathrattle minion when it dies, so it's not a bad 2-drop. And an Evil Conscriptor giving you some of that lackey power, and the Shadowy Figure just being able to copy those Deathrattle minions, that can be really strong. For example, if you go to real late game with this deck and you get to play the Undertaker, get 3 Deathrattles on that, and then you Shadowy Figure to copy it, that can be pretty interesting. Just trying to play on curve a lot, and then overwhelm the opponent eventually with the Deathrattles. I also included Katrina Muerte in this one, just a little bit more end game. And while it might summon something like tokens that are being summoned here, then it also might hit like Cairn or Safeguard. There are a lot of good targets for Katrina Muerte in this deck. Speaking of mid-range style, I also tried to build a Dragon Priest. I'm not sure if it's really possible anymore, and Priest is losing its own dragon synergies. I mean, that's the Matriarch, but I don't even put it in this deck. I don't think it's strong enough. So the Dragon package is actually completely neutral in this deck. There's Roasters, Scorchers, Drakes and Amalgams, so 8 dragons, 5-3 Witch Doctors and Scale Worms that use dragon synergies. And the rest of the stuff is just Priest stuff. So there's Steel abilities with Lasso Scheme, Cabal Shadow Priest, some good minions, some potential late game healing even, and Madame Lasso Camellios, just using your opponent's resources against them. Just a overall solid mid-range deck that just keeps generating threats and generating resources and pressuring the opponent until they crumble. Hopefully anyway. Priest is obviously losing a lot in the rotation. They're losing everything in the rotation, so none of these decks look much like the current Priest decks. But seeing the whole set, Priest is getting some pretty decent cards and trying to put them all together. I was able to build 4 decks that have some potential. I still think Priest looks to be on the weaker side of things, but maybe there is some hope for the class. I will be building theorycrafting decks for every single class before the cards will be playable, so remember to check out the channel to see the rest. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more.